But this time, instead of contemplating the breath as such, he is to contemplate the feeling in order to know what the feeling is. Like in each stage, from the first stage to the second, third, fourth and fifth. While contemplating like this, he observes that the feeling which is bliss has been developing all the time and is developed fully in the fourth stage. With the feeling fully developed in the fourth stage, the meditator comes to contemplate it all the more intensely in different ways. As described in the following two stages, i.e., the fifth and sixth, when he comes to the seventh stage he contemplates the feeling as basis for conditioning the mind, or as Mara, the tempter, the evil one, who deludes one into having subtle but strong attachment for the cycle of becoming, Vasasra. Having learnt that feeling is actually present in all the stages, let one make no mistake that it is advisable to contemplate feeling. In each and every stage, let it be clear that what has been said above is just to point out that, although feeling is present in each stage, the meditator contemplates differently in each stage. He begins to contemplate long breathing and then gradually contemplates short breathing, the whole body. He calms the breathing, and contemplates the specific feeling of rapture arisen thereby, and then bliss as feeling, and finally he contemplates feeling as a condition for mind. When the meditator comes to a stage of practice which deals with training of contemplating feeling as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and no self, he has to go back and start anew the practice from the first stage and gradually observe feeling in all the following stages up to the stage in which he is training at present. This may be any of the 4 steps of the second tetrad. He is to practice in this way so as to see clearly that feeling is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and no self, not only in the first, second and third stage, but also in the fourth stage, in which the feeling,
no matter how lofty and perfect it is still impermanent, unsatisfactory, and no self. As he goes on contemplating feeling as impermanent, etc., he comes to be successively more moved, Savega, in proportion as the feeling becomes more refined and delicate. When he reaches the 5th and 6th stages and is wholly bathed in the feeling which is pleasurable at its height, the hard facts of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and no self become most clear, that is, incomparably more clear than in the previous steps of contemplating long breathing, etc. Therefore, in answer to the question when and to whom does the mental formation, that is perception and feeling, manifest, we may say that they arise and become manifest to the practitioner at the time when he trains himself through all the stages, while breathing in and out, beginning from the first stage up to the present 7th stage. In the first stage he sees pleasant feeling which is still faint, and then, after having passed through the 3rd stage, he comes to feeling which is highly developed to the extent that it is accompanied by one-pointedness or concentration of mind, hence firm and steady, in the form of happiness or joy as one of the factors of jhana, especially the 3rd jhana, in which it is full-fledged and most clearly manifest. The more the feeling becomes manifest, the clearer it becomes that it is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and no self. Only when the 3 characteristics become clear can the feeling be said to be seen in the true sense of the word. To sum up, whether in its general meaning or as the mental formation, siddhasakra, feeling can become manifest to the meditator in all stages from the 1st up to the 7th, and even at the time when the 3 general characteristics of impermanence, etc., are seen. Henceforth, we shall consider in what way perception and feeling as the mental formation are experienced.
The guideline, experiencing the mental formation, follows the way of practice as in the case of experiencing rapture and bliss as dealt within the preceding 2 stages, can say that the way of practice is almost the same, that is, both feeling and perception are manifest to the meditator as the mental formation when he applies his mind by means of breathing in and out in 16 ways, that is, by way of knowing, contemplating, perceiving, clearly seeing, reflecting, deciding mentally, resolving with faith, exerting energy, establishing mindfulness, concentrating the mind, knowing clearly through wisdom, knowing thoroughly through the highest knowledge, fully understanding, abandoning what should be abandoned, developing what should be developed, realizing what should be realized. By means of breathing in and out he experiences clearly within himself that the feeling apparently joined with perception conditions the mind. It should be noted here that in each phase of applying the mind in 16 ways feeling is manifest in its function of conditioning the mind. It is the same as in the 5th and 6th stages. To sum up, while breathing in and out in whatever stage and in whatever ways, the meditator all the time experiences feeling in its capacity as a condition of mind. As for the characteristics of feeling, they have already been mentioned in the 5th stage. The next points to be considered are how mindfulness, sati, and knowledge, na, arise, each performing its function at its height. In what sense the contemplating of feeling is termed Vedananupassana Satapana Bhavana, how different groups of dhammas such as faculties, etc. in particular, and 29 dhammas in general are gathered together, how the meditator knows the domain, gakara, and penetrates the benefit of calm, samatha, of those dhammas, see pages 362 to 365. All those points were discussed in the last part of the 5th stage.
Thus the whole theme of the 7th stage is exactly the same as explained in the 5th and 6th stages in the method of practice. The only point which differs is, of course, that in the present stage the meditator, instead of merely contemplating what or how the feeling is, contemplates how feeling together with perception conditions the mind. Stage 8, the guideline for practicing the 8th stage is, calming the mental formation, I shall breathe out, thus he trains himself. Calming the mental formation, I shall breathe in, thus he trains himself. The thing to be considered is the way of calming the mental formation, for the rest in this stage is the same as explained in other stages, especially the 3 preceding stages. Calming the mental formation, siddhasakra, is connected with calming the bodily formation, kayasakra, which means breathing. It is therefore advisable that the meditator wisely calm his breathing in order to calm perception and feeling, the twin conditions of mind. He should resort to the calming of breathing if he is overwhelmed by the force of perception and feeling and is thereby lost in any kind of thinking, vitaka, even if it be wholesome, kusala. As the coarse breathing is gradually calmed down, so is the force of perception and feeling calmed down in proportion, and consequently the thinking of thought calms down also. Such is in general the basic skillful ment, upaya, for calming the mental formation. Further hints on the method of practice, let the meditator note, and focus his attention on the intensity of the perception and feeling, taking the intensity itself as the object or sign, nimitta, of his contemplation. He should clearly note in the beginning how intensive perception and feeling really are and how, afterwards, they tend to become successively more calm or feeble as he gradually controls his breathing, rendering it successively more subtle and delicate.
Let it be clear that, as a rule, along with the controlling of the breathing, the perception and feeling are controlled automatically. If one can control the breathing, making it gradually more calm, one naturally is able to weaken the intensity or force of perception and feeling. It should be remembered, however, that in this stage the meditator does not contemplate the breathing, which is now being gradually calmed down, as the object. Instead, he takes as the object of contemplation the very perception and feeling, which are gradually being calmed through the calming of the breathing. Thus the meditator trains himself in calming of the mental formation. The important principle is, the finer the breathing, the calmer our perception and feeling, and, as a result, the more calm and non-distracted the mind becomes, on the principle that the mind reaches non-distraction because perception and feeling are calmed down, or on the principle that the mind reaches non-distraction because perception and feeling are contemplated as the object, we can say the meditator takes as object the feeling itself, which is the immediate mental condition, siddhasakra, and which is now calming down gradually. Thus the breathing in and out is present quite clearly, mindfulness is fully established on the feeling which is slowly calming down with the calming of the breathing, and, as a result of all this, the mind is fully concentrated or one-pointed and collected. In this way mindfulness and concentration are perfected through the contemplation of the mental conditions of perception and feeling. As for insight knowledge, anapanasati or na, in connection with this stage of anapanasati, the meditator sees the feeling which is calming down as being the mental formation which is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and no self. In doing so, he eventually abandons the perceptions, sana, of permanence, pleasure and self or soul respectively.
This is both insight knowledge, anapanasati, and calming down the perception that feeling is permanent, etc. In this way, knowledge, jnana, and calming of the mental formation, siddhasakra, go together. As a result, the meditator becomes wearied and dispassionate of feeling, thereby causing cessation. He renounces feeling. Being dispassionate, he abandons greed for feeling. While causing cessation, he abandons arousing, and while renouncing, he abandons clinging to feeling. All this process takes place in exactly the same manner as we observed in detail while discussing the fifth stage, and it is in this sense that the development of the contemplation of feeling is called Vedananupasanasatapana in the true and full sense of the term bhavana, development, and since the development is at height, there is the gathering together, samadhana, of different dhammas, beginning from the five faculties and culminating in nibbana, the deathless, amitagata nibbana, and all this, as well, takes place is dealt with in the fifth stage. The term calming has the meaning of cooling down by degrees until finally the state of perfect calm emerges. This refers to the fact that, in the beginning, feeling becomes successively weaker and more powerless until it ceases to be manifest. As a result, it conditions the mind less and less until eventually there is no conditioning of the mind at all. This is called calming the mental formation. This way of gradual calming down can be brought about because perception and feeling are controlled through controlling the breathing. In the beginning, with the aid of mindfulness, perception and feeling are gradually calmed down. Then, by means of concentration, they are made calm and disappear. And finally, by the force of contemplation or insight, anapanasati or jnana, their power of conditioning is neutralized, invalidated. All the time the meditator is developing contemplation during this stage.
The kind of perception and feeling that works as the mental formation does not exist. To sum up, mindfulness, concentration and contemplation, anapanasati, which here constitute development, bhavana, are developed by means of breathing in and out, and they control the breathing in such a way that perception and feeling are controlled. Thus the development resulting in controlling perception and feeling is called anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, because it is carried out by means of, or is connected with, breathing in and out, as are all the preceding stages. Again, this development is called Vedananupasanasatapana because it is concerned with the establishment of mindfulness. By way of contemplating feeling. As this development has to do with each in and out breathing, so it is called both anapanasati as well as satapanabhavana. This is the explanation of the eighth stage, and concludes the second tetrad dealing with feelings as the object throughout the four steps of this tetrad. Final remarks. In the second tetrad, one is advised to observe that there are 8 kinds of knowledge, concerning contemplation and 8 kinds of establishment of mindfulness. This means that the meditator, 1, while experiencing rapture, 1, breathes in mindfully. 2, while experiencing rapture, 2, breathes out mindfully. 3, while experiencing bliss, 3, breathes in mindfully. 4, while experiencing bliss, 4, breathes out mindfully. 5, while experiencing the mental formation, 5, breathes in mindfully. 6, while experiencing the mental formation, 6, breathes out mindfully. 7, while calming the mental formation, 7, breathes in mindfully. 8, while calming the mental formation, 8, breathes out mindfully. Only when the meditator is in this way endowed with these 8 kinds of knowledge of contemplation, 1 till 8. Through the 8 kinds of establishment of mindfulness, 1 till 8, is the practice of the second tetrad perfected.
Chapter 15, the third tetrad, from contemplating the characteristics of mind up to liberating it from things born with it. Stage 9, experiencing the mind while breathing in and out. Stage 10, gladdening the mind while breathing in and out. Stage 11, concentrating the mind while breathing in and out. Stage 12, liberating the mind while breathing in and out. As is clear from the above account, the present tetrad deals with mind as opposed to breathing in the first tetrad and feeling in the second. Stage 9, the guideline for practicing the 9th stage of anapanasati, is this: experiencing the mind, I shall breathe out, thus he trains himself. Experiencing the mind, I shall breathe in, thus he trains himself. The essential points which should be discussed are these: 1. He trains himself. Point 2. Experiencing the mind. 3. Knowledge, na, and mindfulness, sati, together with other dhammas, which are developed by virtue of practice. The explanation is as follows. The point he trains himself has the same meanings as all the other stages from the third stage onwards. Generally speaking, while the meditator is practicing any of the stages of practice, no wrong action takes place whether in body or in speech, and he is well restrained in the way of virtue or morality, sila. Thus he is established in the higher training of morality, adi sila sikha. At that time, his mind is not distracted, thus he is established in the higher training of concentration, adi siddha sikha. When he contemplates the object, be it breathing, feeling, or the mind, as the case may be, he sees it as impermanent, etc. Thus he is established in the higher training of wisdom, anapanasati. Such being the case, we can say that while training himself in any stage, the meditator is training himself in the threefold training, tasika, in the full sense of the term.
It should be noted here that it does not matter by means of what object and in what stage the meditator trains himself. For in each case he fully trains himself by way of the threefold training, the expression thus he trains himself, as it also occurs in the rest of the stages, has the same meaning in terms of the threefold training. As regards the second point of experiencing the mind, we have here to consider the experiencing and the mind separately. Experiencing has the same meaning as explained in the preceding stages, in summary, to experience anything implies to give rise to that thing and contemplate it as an object, thereby thoroughly knowing what it is and what characteristics it has, with the result that the meditator is wearied, dispassionate, and finally renounces it, all the time breathing in and out. Presently, all this process of experiencing by way of giving rise to and finally renouncing applies to the mind, which will be explained in the following. The mind is known by various names: intellect, mano, intellection, manasa, heart, hidaya, lucidity, para, mind base, manutana, mind faculty, manindriya, kama, consciousness, vina, consciousness aggregate, vinakand, mind consciousness element, manovinadatu. All these terms refer to, or can be used in place of, siddha, the mind. Even though the term heart, hidaya, is included in the list, it should be taken to represent the mind and not the physical organ of that name, as it is ordinarily understood. Point 1 should therefore know the meaning of all these terms and take them as different shades of meaning of the term mind or siddha. Where can the mind be experienced? Those who practice anapanasati know well that the mind can be experienced in each and every stage of anapanasati.